My opponent's name is William Reuter, and this game was played in May 13 of 1990. In this game, I employed a system called King's Indian Attack. King's Indian Attack is a very good solid system that sometimes you see high-rated players also play for a win when they don't want to show their hand. Let's say Magnus Carlsen playing a major tournament a couple of months before the World Championship match, where he's not going to play any of his openings that he's about to play in a couple of months against his opponent. So he plays other systems. If you noticed last year, before he met the match with Karyakin, he attended a major tournament and he played all the offbeat lines. Like in one game, he opened with e3. He transposed eventually later, but he figured I can play anything and I still beat these guys. After all, these guys are like low GMs. Is there such thing as a low GM? Or light elephant? Anyway, so he was beating pretty much all these guys. So in this game, when I'm white, I used to play e4 quite a bit, which is a good way to improve your tactics. It's very tactical opening. Then for another 10 years, I switched to d4. That's not as tactical, but it's still very positional. And these days, against my tougher opponents, I exclusively open with knight f3. I'm not saying necessarily knight f3 is better, it's just more flexible. There are more subtle variation. So I played this knight f3 on white, he played knight f6. For all the reasons that this is a good flexible move for white, not showing his hand as to which pawns he's eventually going to put in the center, this is also a good flexible move for black. Flexibility is a key principle in chess and in life at the more advanced level. So I played g3. My opponent played g6. This is one of the lines of in chess that black can copy white's moves up to 10 moves, and position would be purely symmetrical. Bishop g2, he played bishop g7. So far so good. Castles. Castles. At master level, you see very often that they quickly put their king to safety and then focus on the queen side. So now it's time to put a couple of pawns in the center. c4, d6. One idea behind d6 is for black to play e5. After this d6, now we can name this system. This is called King's Indian defense. And there are like 8 different systems that white could play against it. The line that I've always been playing is called G3 system. It's a super solid line, and this is a line that you probably don't see anybody under 2000 play much, but at master, grandmaster level, you see this quite often. So one of the features of King's Indian defense for black is to eventually play e5. This is about the only variation that in chess that could be on either side of this. When I'm black, I'll play King's Indian attack against defense against d4. And when I'm white and black plays King's Indian defense, I'll employ what's called G3 system. So black is about to play this move, and because of this pawn formation heading towards the king side, black is about to have a pawn avalanche on the king side, eventually moving this knight and f5 and trying to create some accident and gain a space, and eventually bringing these two minors closer to the king side. That's the idea. So in this position, I'll play d4. But d4, obviously, e5 is not playable right now. But that's black's aim to eventually play e5. So black played knight bd7. I was pretty happy to see this move because this is at the line that Fischer used to play in the 70s and Kasparov in the early 80s. And it's kind of outdated, because just by simple good developing move, white can have a slight advantage and black can never equalize. The new treatment of this line by black is a6 followed by knight c6 followed by rook b8. These 3 moves constitutes what's called Panov attack. Panov, who was an Argentinian grandmaster, he employed this system very successfully and got many good results with it. The point of this is, number 1, he gets the rook off the dangerous diagonal of this bishop. Number 2, black is about to expand on the queen side of the board. Once he castled, fully developed the king side, he pays attention to developing the queen side. And of course, b5 is almost unstoppable. And this is a very good setup. This is the modern treatment of this variation as black, pawn off setup. But I've been on the white side of this line quite often, and I'm very happy to see black playing this move, because I know black almost never equalizes, as you see in this game also. So against knight bd7, of course, black's goal is to play e5, which white cannot stop anymore, but white wants to make sure that he has a good share of the center. So knight c3 I played, he played e5, and I played e4. And black played c6. This is all book moves so far. At this point, there was a game in the very famous match between Botvinnik versus Smyslov. The correct move is h3. This little move does so many things for white. Number one, it prevents a piece from these squares. Number two, king would have a luft just in case. And in some variations, you get to play g4. In that famous game, either deliberate or oversight, white immediately played bishop e3, and black naturally harassed it with this move. So this is the biggest drawback of not playing h3. So theory considers h3 the best move, and I played it. And here black played rook e8. The best move that this guy played in some other games against me was queen b6 here, to immediately strike at this area. Rook e8 is a little bit slow, and black almost never equalizes with this move, even though it's considered one of the main alternatives to queen b6. If you look at an opening book like a Modern Chess Opening, MCO, or Nonce Chess Opening, NCO, they give both of these moves. So white just need to make good developing moves. Bishop e3. So as you see, our development conforms with what you're supposed to do in the opening. Develop all the minors, and then connect the rooks by moving the queen somewhere, one of these squares around here, and bring the rooks to central files under normal circumstances. So after bishop e3, black has many continuations. Sometimes black plays queen c7 and redeploys the knight to f8 and e6. Another plan is to play a6 with the idea of b5 at some point. Of course, against a6, white immediately plays a4. So as we discussed this game, I also incorporate the stages of the middle game. You know, middle game typically has 4 stages. Restrain, keep your opponent cramped, have more space and mobility for yourself. Creating weaknesses, usually with pawns. Breakthrough, occupying those weaknesses. And destruction. These are the 4 stages of the middle game. For example, if black plays a6 now, first stage of the middle game is restrained. You don't want to let him play b5, and he's about to play. So you want to pressure the square one more time. This is an example of a restraining move. Black just can't play b5 anymore. So in this position, black quickly liquidated the center, and I think this was not a good idea either. Black immediately captured, he takes d4. But the fact that he played this move, it could also mean that he has studied this line quite a bit. Chances are, when two very close rivals play certain variations, they know what the other side is playing, so based on that expectation and what they've studied, they play. So e takes d4, white captures, knight takes d4. And by the way, white played classically in this opening. You see, I have 2 pawns and a knight on my 4th row. Black has nothing. So white is playing classically. Under classical chess, you control and occupy the center. Under hypermodern setup, you may not even have any pawn on your 4th rank, but you strike in through this file and this diagonal, eventually trying to strike at white's center. But all in all, white has a little bit of a space advantage for the moment. So now black played knight c5. This square is a very nice outpost for this knight. It's having an eye on so many squares around here. and immediately attacks this for the third time, right? So I have to defend this somehow. So queen c2. In one game against this guy, years back, he played queen e7. He's hitting the pawn 4 times. Now it seems that I just have to play f3. But this move is very tricky. Rook e1. And he figured the pawn is not directly defended 4 times, so he took the pawn. But this move was a trap. After takes, I'll play knight takes. He played knight takes. I played bishop takes. He played queen takes. And what's the exclam move, the winning move for white now? There's a fantastic move at this point. That when he took, he completely overlooked that move.
Bishop attacked the other bishop?
Bishop d2, because if I go here, he captures here twice. I go here, and black loses the game. Queen takes rook, loses to rook takes. He can trade rooks too. Queen takes queen, fails to rook takes rook first, check, followed by knight takes queen. And either way, white wins a piece, no matter what, right? So he knows better now. He didn't repeat this line. So in this position, after queen c2, he played a different line, the line that is a book move, recommended. a5. The point of this move is to prevent b4 and keep this knight here for as long as possible. It's white to play, and white played rook ad1. This move set another trap for black. It's black to play, but if we were white, white has a nice combination here. You guys care to find it?
Knight takes c6.
And after pawn takes?
Bishop takes knight.
Exactly, right. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, take advantage of this pin. Of course, he's a senior master. He's going to see this. He played queen e7. But believe it or not, at this point, there's an exclam move here.
Knight takes c6 anyway, and you fork the rooks.
His exclam move is this move, knight fd7. So up to this point, which is move 13, at the end, I went back and compared the opening moves in the opening reference book with what we played, and I realized that this is the exclam move here. The point is to move the queen here next, and knight here, and here in this pawn. And these knights seem to be unstable because white can play at any point, move like this and kick it. But then knight goes back, and black hits this pawn with knight f6 next. And this pawn is white has to defend. When you have a center, that's good. It's imposing, you're occupying and controlling, but it's also a problem. You got to defend that center. So in the game, he played queen e7. So my heartbeat started beating a little bit faster here. So, he's going to fall into that trap again. Rook fe1, but no, he didn't do it. This time he played knight fd7. He just wanted to keep the queen here, and his idea is not to go knight here, hitting this pawn. So the way it goes, white usually defends this pawn with b3, and black plays a4. And you see pretty much all the pieces, including this unmoved rook, are active along that file. So knight fd7, but I felt like this was a little bit artificial because I knew knight fd7 was playable instead of queen e7. But he played queen e7 and then knight fd7. This one loss of tempo made a huge difference because with these rooks already centralized and good files, I get away with playing f4 now and preventing his knight e5. And I'm about to go bishop here next, And this is a fantastic position for white. I have a pair of rooks, bishops, knights, and I do enjoy good deal of a space advantage. Black is cramped, but it's not so easy to crack this position. This is a very solid position for black. It takes many maneuvering to get to it. So I played f4, and he played knight b6. So he's hitting the pawn this way. By the way, later on I realized that the idea of knight fd7, knight b6 is to have some force on this side of the board and constantly create a threat. But one of the best ways to deal with this pawn is b3. If I didn't have this move, in some lines this pawn has been traded with this pawn. This move also would have been perfectly fine, hitting it twice. I mean, defending the pawn. But b3 I felt like is a good move, so I played it. And now he played this knight back to d7. So this is a sure sign that he doesn't know what he's doing, right? Otherwise he would have followed up with that plan of knight b6. Knight here and back, just what kind of damage did it inflict to my position by playing b3? It really didn't, anything. So I felt like he's just on his own and he doesn't know what he's doing. So you just continue to improve your position. This is metagame. Metagame is all about piece optimization. You constantly want to improve the position of your pieces. So bishop f2. This usually goes together, and now my rooks enjoy good defensive. He played knight f8. So after he played this knight move again, I said, I think you're doing too much horsing around. You play better chess. So I need to improve my position. This looks good, but it's not enough. I need to do something more concrete, right?
Can you crack it open with f5?
Well, I try to deal with his best place piece in the center. I played a3 with the idea of b4. f5 is a position of blunder because permanently weakens that square. Then this knight goes back here and then goes here, and this is, with this bishop hemmed in with my own pawn, this doesn't look good. And this fantastic outpost for his piece. Oh, it doesn't help me much. Pawn takes, and it's fine. All that happened was my f pawn got traded with his h pawn, which is also good for him. He still has these pawns. So this may look like I'm forcing, but this is the way I used to play chess when I was 1800. I just ram a pawn and realized that, oh my gosh, I just create a lot of weaknesses in my position. So I played a3 with the idea of b4 coming. And now he played queen c7. This is where he should have gone a long time ago instead of queen e7. And he's trying to go here and prevent my b4. And he feels like after, even if I pushed pawn takes, he could go here and attack this weak pawn, which has potentially to be weak. So I played b4 immediately. Pawn takes. And now knight c d7. Okay. Now there's an exclam move at this point for white that is may look double-edged, but I played this probably about a half dozen times against masters throughout my career. And some of them, they were just shocked. It just couldn't believe the move. Anybody cares to find the exclam move for white here?
Knight to d5.
Knight d5, pawn takes pawn, and I lose a whole piece. Pawn takes knight.
Pawn takes.
Mitch is good at sacrificing other people's pieces.
Trying to get the, because the queen is not protected, I'm trying to open up the c file.
You see, white's position is at its best. It almost doesn't get any better than this. When your position improves, you outplay your opponent, you have a good position, you just need to look for tactics. It must be there, even if it's a sacrifice. Knight d b5. You see, if he doesn't take the knight, Next is knight takes here. Fantastic knight, almost winning the game, no doubt.
What about taking the queen?
Pardon me?
If it doesn't take the knight, knight takes the queen. No?
Well, I mean, if he, for example, plays queen here, I'll just take this pawn, easily winning game. So he must accept the sacrifice, even though position even after this looks good. So he has to take, and after it takes, this knight takes. Where should black go? Black played queen b8. He doesn't want to come to the d file because on the d file I may take with a rook and pile up. Queen b8 and now knight d6. So what happened as a result of this sacrifice is that white sacrificed the knight. He got 2 pawns for it, and I have a very powerful knight posted on the 6th row. A knight on the 6th row is as good, if not better, than a rook. Compare the position of this knight with that rook a8. I like this knight better. So the most effective thing about knight here is that it paralyzes black. So what should black do?
Save the rook.
Save the rook, rook e7. So I have a good position, almost winning actually, but I still have to win it. So how does white improve this position?
Open up those bishop diagonals.
Very good. Yes, exactly. So how do you do that?
So maybe e5.
e5 is playable, but it weakens this square, and his bishop may come here at some point. I push c5 first. Main reason is to prevent his own b6 and trying to, you see, these pieces are pretty much out of the game. It prevents b6 because of c6, and that pawn would be devastating. So I played c5, and now my bishop can come to this square, bearing down on this, maybe queen of b3 next. So I'm going to strike at black's weakest spot. Black's weakest spot on this entire chessboard is usually f7. So it's black to play. He is playing for activity. Rook a3. So any immediate threat? No, but I have to be careful that he may have rook here at some point. I didn't think that was dangerous, so I continued with my own plan, e5. I close this diagonal, and now that knight is here, I don't have to worry about the bishop here anymore because I'm on it twice. So the position is very visually appealing, and all this at the cost of 1 pawn. Sacrifice the knight, got 2 pawns. But I still have to win it, right? So black is extremely cramped. His pieces have very few squares to go to. This knight has nowhere to go, and queen is not so well placed, and I'm about to pile up against this pawn. So this is the moment that when you have a cramped position and you are a piece up, give it back. So I won the piece, I sacked the piece for 2 pawns, and he did the same. He played knight takes e5. It's a sign of sophistication in chess when you are ahead in material and you realize the only way to win is to sack back. F takes e5, bishop takes e5. Okay. So he got his piece back. We have made exactly 26 moves at this point, and the game only lasted 6 more moves. Well, 7 on white side. White to play and win. You can treat this as a puzzle, chess puzzle. White to play and win from this position. See, we can see some powerful tactics. The game ends disastrously for black. So how does white to play can win from this position? And by the way, black is about to, no, he can't win anything, but he's holding for the moment.
How about rook takes bishop and then fork the rooks with the queen?
Right, that's what I did, very good. Eventually ends up trading really, but trade usually favors the better developed player. You can compare the position of the pieces. Position of my queen against his, this bishop against that bishop that hasn't been developed yet, and a position of this knight compared with this knight. All in all, white has clearly better position. So I play rook takes. His bishop is very dominating, has to be dealt with. And after rook takes, what move?
Queen B2.
Queen b2. So 2 rooks under attack, but black can defend it. He played rook a e3. So I sacked an exchange. He's willing to sack it back. And this is about his best move too. So I took bishop takes, rook takes, and 4 more powerful moves, and black resigned.
Bishop to D5.
How about queen to F6?
Queen F6.
Queen f6. On queen f6,
F2.
he will play bishop here and guards the f7 pawn.
Queen F2 forces rook to E7, and then maybe you can do bishop to
Very good.
D5.
Queen f2. So he has absolutely 1 move at this
Yeah,
point.
rook D7.
There are 2 targets. You see, this double attack is one of the most common tactical themes in chess. As soon as you see an opponent undefended piece, there's a principle among masters called LDPO, lose pieces, drop off. So make sure your pieces are always mutually defending each other. Petrosian never had that problem. He was such a good defensive player. His pieces were always mutually defending each other. You never see a tactic of double attack against Petrosian. He would never fall for those. So rook e7, the only move to defend both. And white to play.
Bishop
D5.
Now I played bishop d5 falls to bishop e6. Now queen f6. You see, he doesn't have time for bishop e6 and guarding this.
Oh, it's right in there.
How is he going to
Rook's rook.
defend the rook?
Queen C7.
There was a tactical flaw with queen c7. Can anybody tell what the
Oh,
problem?
Knight to E. Knight to E.
Oh, you could just take the bishop on C8, and then what's going to take that bishop back?
Exactly. With queen c7, his queen is overloaded. He's doing 2 defending. Like Dan said, knight takes bishop. His queen doing 2 defending, so there was a tactical problem with queen c7. He realized that, and he played the only other move, which is
Bishop.
Move the
Oh no, rook.
he has to move the rook.
C.
Rook c7. Very good. Okay.
Oh, but knight to E8 is deadly, no?
90.
You're threatening mate at G7,
Yeah.
and you're forking the rook.
Congratulations. Played. 98. 2 targets. So what's his only move not to get mated?
Knight to E6.
Played. Very good. And what was white's last move that black resigned?
Rook to D8.
Or bishop to.
I remember I showed this game last year or a couple of years ago, and even back then Mitch said rook d8. And it's a fantastic move.
Would you have a better one?
Well, I played another one that was also winning, but I think at this point I was in time pressure. Both of us were in time pressure here. So rook d8 was the most straightforward move.
D6.
Rook d6,
Oh, rook D8 is a great one. It's a great.
rook d6. Rook d6 he may play king here. Oh, that loses too. That wins too. Because if he plays king here, I'll play rook takes. He can take with the bishop, but then I have this check. But he can play king e7, so he's okay.
I like
Or
the
rook,
rook to D8.
yeah, rook d8 is much more decisive. But either under time pressure or find another winning continuation, I didn't play that move. Instead, I played queen e5. So his rook is frozen, can move, and one idea, of course, is knight takes. Another idea is still rook here next, anyway. But rook d8 was more straightforward. So he figured he's had enough at this point and finally gave up. So the lesson for us is when you know you're opening well, you can carry that advantage, a slight pull into the middle game, and hopefully increase that advantage, get the clear advantage, then winning advantage, and at this point, it's winning. Hope you enjoyed it. That is our lecture.